Greetings all, FerrariMan601 here. Recently, I was asked a very interesting question by a loyal friend of the channel, 8802 Gator. In these days of turbo hybrid Formula One, a lot of us look back toward the V10 era as being the pinnacle of racing, not only in terms of the sound and the sights, but also in terms of the speed. The Ferrari F2004, as we see here, still holds many lap records on several Grand Prix venues that we still visit year after year. And, well, it is one of the most successful Formula One cars of all time, and it is still one of the most highly revered amid fans all around the world. However, 8802 Gator asked me a very interesting question. Are 2004 era Formula One cars really faster than 2018, 2019, even 2017 cars? And if so, how do we know if it's even true? And more importantly, can we test it using Assetto Corsa? So I thought about this, and I came to the following conclusions. In short, I've concluded that yes, we can test this using Assetto Corsa, and therefore I've designed an experiment for us to undertake. Under controlled conditions, we're going to drive the F2004 and the SF70H for the same number of laps around the same circuit, and we're going to compare the elapsed times of both runs. We're not necessarily concerned about lap time here, but we are concerned with how much time elapses between when the lights go out and when we cross start-finish for the final time. I've decided to do this based on the reasonable length of a 2004 race stint, which is about 15 laps. Now, I know that some of you may say, well, that sounds a little bit short, but 2002, 2003, 2004, it wasn't all that uncommon to see Michael Schumacher, in the F2004 in this case, doing 3 or 4 stops in a Grand Prix and winning the thing. Remember, refueling was a thing in this era, therefore the cars were stopping for fuel because it was a lot faster on aggregate, even though you were coming to a stop for 7-8 seconds during your in-lap in order to refuel. The cars were faster because they were lighter, they weren't carrying that extra weight in fuel. Of course, none of this is possible with the SF70H, the 2017 car, because these cars don't refuel during the Grand Prix. So, same number of laps, we've arrived at 15 laps there. Both cars are going to run on the softest available tires, so that's the soft compound in the F2004 and the ultra soft for the SF70H. Therefore, we are eliminating as many variables as we can. Of course, the F2004 running on groove tires and the SF70H running on slicks, they're very different tires, very different characteristics, they wear at different rates, etc. But we're trying to eliminate things, we're trying to make things as consistent as possible. In the F2004, we're going to be running traction control as the F2004 would have run traction control when it was racing. Here in the SF70H, we're going to be running the MGU system, and we're also going to be using DRS in the designated DRS zones. We're going to be doing this test at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, which is not a circuit that both cars would have visited, but it's representative of the sorts of tracks and the sorts of corners that both cars would have seen. Obviously, the newer circuits, the ones that would have been visited in 2017, they're a bit wider, but they're also featuring some tighter corners and also some high-speed corners as well. The Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit features a smattering of all of these things, so I feel that it is rather representative. Doing this test at a place like Monza wouldn't really make sense because it's all straight lines for the most part. You're not going to be braking as much, you're not going to be carrying downforce through high-speed corners, you're not going to be putting the same sort of wear into the tire. So again, trying to eliminate variables, trying to keep things as even as we can across the board. The actual testing conditions, it's going to be a race. Now, in Assetto Corsa, we can't do a race session, technically speaking, with just one car. So we have one opponent car just as a gap filler. We're not actually going to be competing. That opponent car is the RSS Formula 2000 V10. I need something that's going to be fast enough so that I'm not catching it constantly, coming up to lap it, but also not going to be fast enough to harry us, because, again, we just want to be focusing on putting in consistent lap times for the duration of this run. So the RSS Formula 2000 is going to be running alongside us, hopefully not wheel to wheel with us, but you see what I mean. And ultimately, at the end of the day, elapsed time from the start of the session to the time that I cross start finish on lap 15 is going to be our benchmark in terms of measuring how fast these cars are compared to each other over a given stint distance. Again, taking into account the fuel load burning down and the tires burning down as well in terms of the wear rates. In order to come up with a starting fuel load, we're going to be doing a control run, 3 laps in the Ferrari F2004, picking the F2004 because it has a higher rate of fuel consumption. Therefore, if we have enough fuel to do 15 laps in the F2004, we have more than enough fuel to do 15 laps in the SF70H. So I'll show you how we're going to arrive at our starting fuel load in the next clip. Stand by. Okay, so this is our fuel consumption test. We need to come up with a reasonable fuel level to start out with in both cars. Because the F2004 has a higher rate of fuel consumption than the SF70H, we're going to do this in the F2004, because if we've got enough gas to do the 15 laps in the F2004 without having to make a stop and blowing all of our metrics, the SF70H with its lower rate of fuel consumption will definitely do 15 laps and then some. So we need to complete 2 flying laps in order to get a baseline from Assetto Corsa. So we're going to do that now. This first lap doesn't really count for anything. We are going to do it at more or less full pace, but we need to actually cross start finish 3 times from a flying lap. So this is lap 0 that we've just started. Running the same setup as we will be doing in the actual test, with the exception of the fuel load, because we don't know what that number has to be yet. If I had to guess, I would say it's around 70-ish liters, but we will find out. We are running traction control. We will be running traction control. I can't promise you that I won't be adjusting it throughout the longer run as the tires start to wear out, but running traction control step 6 right now. As you can see on the steering wheel, the LCD, the principal one, the large one, that number 6 in the right-hand side, that is the traction control setting. Of course, in 2004, these cars ran traction control, so that's authentic. Again, that front axle just coming up to temperature a little bit more. Tires were in the warmers, but there is nothing better than getting temperature in the tires than actually driving them hard. Towards the end of the lap now, chicane. All right, coming out of the final corner, traction control working overtime. Now beginning lap 1. Lap time last time was 129.24. You can see that on the bottom window, bottom LCD window of the steering wheel. Of course, you can read that once we are going in a straight line again. Very difficult to read here on the sim. Makes me wonder how these guys managed to read it in the real world. Of course, they would have the team barking at them over the radio. Hey, this was your last lap time, Michael. Go faster. Or don't go faster, you're going to break the laws of physics. Whatever Ross Brawn would have been saying to Michael Schumacher back in 2004. Now it's very hard over those exit curbs there. Got to watch that in this car because it has a tendency to turn into a surfboard. Running it very low, of course, as you would, and also running a fair amount of rake in the car, because that suits my taste. And again, I have to say, Michael Schumacher also liked a very pointy car, so kind of running it in a spec that Schumacher himself might have liked, who knows. But coming down out of the middle sector, coming into the last sector. Our delta on the previous lap is minus 0.14. We lost a little bit of time there. Through the chicane, hard on the power, traction control working overtime. Gained about 0.05 on the power, on the exit. Lap time 128.90. 16.5 liters of fuel remaining on the steering wheel there. That's the center LCD. This first sector here on the Grand Prix circuit, it is terrible. You never really get a good flow going. But again, I feel it's representative for both cars. Obviously, in more recent years, we've gotten to much tighter circuits, street circuits, tilkodromes. So again, we have a lot of very slow and tight corners with one line through them that nobody can overtake through. But hey, what do I know? I'm not Herman Tilke. I don't make billions and billions of dollars putting together infrastructure projects subsidized by taxpayers that don't benefit from them. But hey, I digress. Through the middle sector, exit curbs there. Delta on the previous lap. We are now up half a second. Indicated by minus 0.53. On the brakes, curb 1, curb 2, on the power, curb 3, yes! And yes, nice. What have we got? 0.7 up, lap time 129.20. Nope, that's 128, I do believe. But at this point, we should have enough data for Assetto Corsa to calculate our fuel consumption. Now this number is going to change a little bit because as we run more fuel, the car gets heavier and it's going to burn a little bit more gas, so it's a little bit of a logarithmic curve, but it's close enough. So, to the pit screen, and there it is. You can see at 25 liters, it estimates that we can complete 6.3 laps. So, to do the 15 lap distance, also budgeting for a standing start, so maybe half a liter. It's probably a little bit too conservative there. Exactly 15 laps is 59 liters, so I was eyeballing 70. It's a bit lower than that. 59 for exactly 15 laps at the pace we were doing. Pace is going to drop off as the fuel load goes up, but fuel consumption is also going to go up as the fuel load goes up because the car is going to be heavier. So, we are going to do 65 liters in both cars in order to do this test. Now that leaves me a lap and a half wiggle room. Is that a little bit too close for comfort? I don't know, but that is our magic number here. 65 liters in both the F2004 and the SF70H to do this test. We'll start with 65 liters each. Both cars will turn 15 laps in race conditions, even though we are not actually going to be racing here. There's just going to be another car there as a gap filler, and, well, yes, we just want a clear track so we can do this consistently and pound in the lap times. But that is our number, and we're going to see what happens. To the testing ground. Okay, here we are on the grid. It's just me, and the opponent car is actually the RSS Formula 2000 V10. The only reason I've picked this car is because it's going to be fast enough for us, hopefully not to be lapping it, but it's not going to be so fast that we're actually going to be racing. It's not going to be harrying me, at least I hope not. The F2004, even in this stock Kuno spec, much faster. So, 65 liters of fuel on board. We have 15 laps. Traction control is going to start on step 6, and as you can see, we've been very aggressive with our aero settings here on the front and rear wing. But the name of the game is just to do consistent laps. 15 laps, not a very long time, but again, representative of the sort of race stints that the F2004 would have been doing back in the day. So, to the starting line. For your viewing pleasure, I am going to keep the pedals up and the lap time up. And off we go. All right, so where is the RSS? Okay, it's not on my quarter panel there. That's good. And now we'll just pull away from him and get on with the job. Again, I know that some of this probably is not going to be the most riveting in terms of commentary or whatever, but we need to be scientific about it. We need to conserve all of our data, and of course we need to present all of it. So, completely uncut, a 15-lap run from the cockpit in the F2004. At very least, it's a cool car to be watching. And I endeavor to drive it somewhat competently. Definitely feeling the effects of the heavier fuel load now. Getting a bit more understeer than we were on our cider laps there. That'll be reflected in our lap times, of course. But just getting the tires up to temperature. Feeling the car out. The brakes are where I need them now. Front tires still coming in. And the name of the game is just smooth and consistent. With a standing start 134.574, the RSS not completed its first lap yet, so we have enough of a pace differential where it's not going to harry me. That's good. Traction control, there it is at step 6 still. We might be ratcheting that up a little bit as the rear tires wear in. Up 4.5 seconds in Sector 1. That reflects the standing start on the previous lap. Down through the hairpin. This is where everybody went off in 2007. As in everybody who actually made it through turn 1 in 2007 when it started to rain. Of course, I'm alluding to the 2007 European Grand Prix, which was held here at the Nürburgring. Started when it was bright and sunny. By the end of the first lap, a tremendous deluge had opened up over the circuit. Pretty much everybody went off. Kimi Räikkönen missed the pit lane. And at the end of it, Markus Winkelhock, who started from the pit lane, ended up as your race leader before the event was red flagged, and then immediately he got swallowed up by the faster guys behind, and then he retired from his one and only Grand Prix with a hydraulics problem. 129.796 is our first flying lap. Given the fuel load, that's pretty respectable. So far, the car is responding as expected. Tires are well and truly up to snuff now. The brakes are right there. That's good. And I've just got the right amount of TC dialed in now. I like to have a bit of slip in there because it is faster, but at the same time, you don't want too much slip because the power in the upper end of the rev range is explosive in this car. So you don't really want to be running too much slip unless you really expect it. So we'll be feeling that out as the tires wear in. And again, that's a purely subjective thing. And I know many of you already, as we're 2.5 laps into this, you're going to say, well, your force feedback is clipping. I know. I like it. Leave me alone about it. The brakes, you can see the braking techniques that you have to use in this car because of the downforce. It's called cadence braking. You come on the pedal really hard initially, and then almost immediately you start ramping it off because as the speed drops, the downforce drops, and the downforce is what keeps your wheels on the ground. So downforce comes off, the car actually gets lighter, relatively speaking, because it's generating less downforce. Easier to lock your wheels if you don't come off of the brakes. A little bit of power oversteer there, even with traction control, that's okay. Picked up the curb nicely, a little bit too nicely. This is run out zone, and it's fair game. Down 4.5 tenths in Sector 1. Expected that with that little bobble. That's fine. As long as we're reasonably consistent with our lap times, within about half a second each, that's okay. I don't want to be spinning or anything because that'll just blow all of our data. But again, these are things that would happen over the course of a race stint. Not every lap is going to be perfect. Not every lap is going to be an exact copy of the last. Little bit of lift-off oversteer. Second gear, don't turn the wheel too much. It'll just scrub the fronts across the track, and that does them no good. 129.551. 0.312 down from the previous lap. But again, that is okay. Given myself a rather generous margin of error there for being within half a second. Should gain us a bunch of time relative to the previous. And again, at this point, just being smooth and measured with all of my throttle inputs. There's no point ripping the tires to shreds. Because if the car wants to take its time getting down into the corner, that's okay. Lost a bit of time there. Bit of mid-corner understeer setting in. And a little bit of power oversteer there setting in. Mentioned we might have to play with the traction control a little bit. We might want to consider, we'll see how it is through the chicane. Tires could be getting a little hot. Yeah, if tires getting a little hot, we will ratchet the traction control up. Step 5. We're outside of our margin of error there. It's okay. Oversteer under braking. A little bit more forward on the brake bias. Again, these are all things that the drivers would be doing as the fuel load burns down and the tires wear in. They're going to be making these adjustments in the cockpit, just feeling out where the car is and where their personal level of comfort is in relation to what the chassis dynamics are doing. Because remember, as the fuel load's burning down, not only is the car getting lighter, but the weight distribution is changing as well. Of course, with your ballast placement, they're going to try and get as much weight over the front axle as they can if they're trying to go aggressive with their setup. Again, help turn in, but your fuel tank's in the middle, so that's going to pull your center of gravity toward the middle. As the fuel load burns down, the weight distribution is going to shift significantly. And those are all the handling changes that we're experiencing now. I think my little adjustments in here have dialed out most of my problems. But again, we're on lap 6 of 15, and already we've made some significant adjustments from the cockpit. .428. We're getting back there. So you can see it is not a strictly linear case of as the fuel load burns down, the lap times get faster. There are other variables which do come into play. Gained a little bit of time, relatively speaking, in Sector 1. Again, this is comparing to my session best, which is at 29.239. Down to the hairpin, little bit of oversteer through mid-corner. Again, you can stamp that out with your brake bias. If you stay on the pedal and you've got your brake bias cranked forward, you can deal with that. The car will start to pivot around the front axle, which generally is something I like. Second gear through the chicane, probably lost some time. Yeah. Got 1.5 tenths. .376. We're getting there, and the consistency is there. That's all we're going for. We're not looking to set any lap records here. We just want a baseline. Might have taken out that bollard there at turn 1. We'll check on the next lap. Very wide. Going through another balance change on a little bit more front brake bias. Rear axle still feels okay. Got a little bit of time to pick up. And we've done it, I think. Let's get it down. That corner is a bit tricky because the turn-in is off camber, but it turns on camber mid-corner. This, of course, is just flat out. Big lock up there. Little oversteer on turn-in now. 130.292. All right, we didn't take out the bollard last time. Car's starting to settle into a little bit of a four-wheel drift category, which is kind of strange to hear about when you think about these mid-2000s cars, high downforce, sticky tires, and all that. But again, lots of changes in weight distribution going on. And of course, the drivers would have also had other tools available in the cockpit that we don't have in a Assetto Corsa. They'd be able to adjust the differential from the cockpit, things like that. If you ever watch Michael Schumacher's onboards, you always see him playing with settings on the steering wheel. A lot of those settings were differential related. He could control the preload for corner entry, how aggressive the locking force would be as he got back on the throttle. And I mean, he was always playing with the controls in here. And you start to understand why when you do a longer run like this. If I could make the adjustment, I would want to have the differential stay locked a little bit longer going into the corner, because the rear end feels a little bit too free. I suppose I could adjust for that a little bit with brake bias if I crank it rearward a little. And you notice something, we haven't seen our opponent at all. That's good. Relative pace is good enough. Really feeling the tires now, they're really worn in. Feeling them through that high-speed S. We got to watch it. Played with brake bias. Still a little bit of front locking. Turning in on the power. 29.421. 5 to go. A little bit of an adjustment just happened in my driving style. A little switch just got flipped. I know you see me do all these hot laps, whatever, and it looks ridiculous because it is ridiculous, but going fast for a lap or two means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. Qualifying is one lap. If you're going to race, you need to be able to string it together consistently for 60 laps, 70 laps, whatever the case may be. So going fast once means absolutely nothing in terms of where you finish on Sunday. So I've gone from hot lap mode to race pace mode, which means a little bit less aggressive, aiming for consistency, driving it well below 95% or so, probably around 90 right now, and you can see we just put in our fastest lap of the session. My brain has made the switch from trying to be a qualifying hero to just being a race day survivor. Front end also feels a little bit more positive now. The tires might have come out of a graining phase. I don't really know. I don't even know if that's modeled in Assetto Corsa. I don't think it is. But the tires feel a little bit more switched on again. $20 liters of fuel remaining. Fuel consumption will actually start to drop a little. Rear axle still feels fine on step 5 on the TC. A little bit of front locking again. Just really pushing that cadence braking to the limit. A bit of understeer on the exit. Going to be another personal best. 128.775. 3 to go. I always find it interesting, though, whenever I do race, my best laps tend to come toward the end of a stint. Doesn't matter how long I've been driving. It could be 10 laps, or it could be 100 laps. I do my best laps toward the middle and the end. It's never in the beginning. Sounds a little strange because you'd expect to be fresh at the start. At this point, I know we're starting to get toward the end. So we start to focus, we start to back it down a little more. Again, we just want to make it to the end with no mistakes. We want to keep it between the white lines. We want to bring it home in one piece. A bit of bobble there. Just be more careful on the throttle. No need to change the traction control yet. Being mindful of that front locking. There's the RSS in front. We're going to come up to lap him, aren't we? Yeah, we are. We should be pretty evenly matched in terms of straight line speed, but we're going to be a lot faster through the high-speed corners. Marginally better under braking as well, and remember, we have traction control. He doesn't. So again, this is just one of those uncontrollable variables. I could have put another F2004 as the opponent, but then we get into the danger of actually having to race him. We're going to catch him right where I don't want to. Don't hit him. Just out-drag him. Superior horsepower. He cost us about a second there. See how much of that we could claw back. But we got through 14 clear laps before we caught up to him, so that's a pretty good ratio. Yeah, he completely spoiled my rhythm, though. Won 30.545, last lap, 10 laps remaining. 10 liters of fuel remaining, final lap. Downshift protection coming in there. Understeer setting in again across the front axle. Just bring it home. Yep, tires are falling off. So right around here is where we get on the radio to Ross Braun and say, hey, tires are going off, when do you want me in? And then Ross says, Michael, we need to do another 50 qualifying laps. And then Michael says, okay. And then he wins the race by 17 years. But out of the final corner, we'll follow the normal line, 130.097, the final lap. And we'll wait for the RSS to cross the line, and then we will see our splits. He should be crossing the line in a few seconds' time, and there it is. The final time on this, total time elapsed, 22 minutes, 29 seconds, .092. So, that is now the time for the SF70H to beat. Ultimately, that is as simple as it is. What is the time over a 2004-esque race stint? You can see here the splits were fastest in all three sectors, as you would expect, although the differences are not that huge, I've got to say, about 1.5 to 2 seconds average. But yeah, there's that final lap time, 1:35.338 for the Formula 2000 V10. So there is the difference 4 years makes in terms of speed and development, in terms of aero and tires and all that. But this is the important number, 22 minutes, 29 seconds, .092. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I think it's also going to be closer than you might expect. Alright, so back to the track with the SF70H. Same deal as before with the F2004. 15 laps from a standing start with the RSS Formula 2000 as a gap filler, just so we can do this legitimately in Assetto Corsa. So, 65 laps of fuel going on board. Now remember, this car has a much lower rate of fuel consumption than the F2004, meaning that we're not going to lose as much weight as we go through the run. Of course, this car is also heavier than the F2004, so we're not going to lose as much weight. We're also paying more of a weight penalty just in mass. But in terms of fuel mass, we are starting with the same weight penalty relative to our dry weight as the F2004. So it's about as even as we can possibly make it. Running the ultra soft tires here. Again, that is the softest available tire. 15 laps to the grid. Same instrumentation available on the screen for you. Raise the revs and just hope we don't bog it down. That could be worth some time. And off we go. Second phase of the start was not all that great. But we did get away. And now off we go, just as we did previously. Let's bring everything up to temperature. Let's not force the issue too much too soon. And we are using the MGU and DRS, but only in the designated DRS zones. Using manual MGU deploy at times. See if I'm doing that by looking at the upper right of the steering wheel. A little green light comes on next to the K1 button, the yellow K1 button. Through the S for the first time. This is flat out. That was not at all flat in the F2004. Again, we've got a lot more downforce in this one. And driver number 1 has retired, so we have nothing to worry about for the remainder of this run. That's absolutely perfect. Is that going to help us, though? Because remember, we had to lap the other car in the F2004. We'll see. 136.803 with a standing start. If I recall, we did a 134 and change in the F2004. A little bit deep on the brakes there. Five and a half seconds quicker than our previous lap. Remember, standing start last time by. And we have 62 liters of fuel remaining. So you can see that rate of fuel consumption. We started with 65 liters. We've only burnt 4 so far. Through the S, flat out, no problem. DRS. This is the first DRS zone. And it's back straight and it goes through to the chicane. Flap closes when we get on the brakes. Now through the final corner, we get back onto start-finish. Second DRS zone begins right now. 130.988. So keep that time in your mind as we start to burn fuel off. How are we going to be able to approach that as the tires wear? Eighth gear. Brakes feeding the power in. You do have to be careful on acceleration in this car. There is no traction control, of course. However, there's not as much wheel spin as you might think, at least not in the lower hybrid deploy modes. You do have a lot of contact patch. Remember, slicks on this thing. The F2004 running groove tires, albeit with traction control, but even then, it was possible to get wheel spin if you weren't careful. This, still possible to get wheel spin, but it's not all that easy. 130.703, personal best this session, 58.5 liters of fuel remaining, starting on lap 4. Little bit of locking there. Gave up about a tenth, but I think we're going to claw it back. In terms of how this feels in direct comparison to the F2004, this is much more stable. It does not feel like it's jinking around too much, because it's not. A lot of that is down to weight, some of it's down to downforce, and some of it's down to tire, but for the most part, these cars are wider, they're heavier, they're stronger in terms of the monocoque construction and the cockpit surround, so they're heavier. It definitely makes a very different feel coming up through the suspension. You don't get as much jerkiness over the bumps. It tends to absorb more of the bumps than to be deflected by them. .563 session best. So the times are coming down little by little. And again, you would expect this as the fuel load drops. Turn 1 still a little bit of a problem, and that was a big oversteer moment. Gave up about a third of a second there. Hybrid system, again, we're still same setting we started with, balanced high. Doing a lot of manual deploy as well. Pretty much whenever I'm at full throttle, I'm on the button. I don't want to get into a situation though where we run out of available charge, because then that would also blow our metrics. So if necessary, I'll lay off the manual deploy or even turn down the deploy setting a little, but I don't want to run out of power. I always want it available, because I don't want to be throwing in more variables. We could also turn the MGUH to battery if we must, so we could regen down the straights. Car's starting to feel a little bit more squirrely, a little bit more oversteery. Brake bias to the front. Again, brake bias in these cars, it's very tricky because your rear brakes are not the only braking force across the rear axle. Your MGUK is also harvesting off of the rear axle, so that has a net braking effect as well. So if you don't do it right, you end up with really strong rear brakes and very weak front brakes in comparison, and makes things very unstable. So if you're going to be changing your recovery settings, you'd better make sure you adjust the brake bias accordingly. Burned 12 liters of fuel. We're on lap 6. I told you this thing was way more efficient. .109. Got to pick up the pace a bit. There's oversteer. Rear tires are going off. Remember, running the Ultra Softs, they were not exactly known for their longevity. Look at that, I lost 4/10 in one corner, and I didn't even make a mistake. That's got to have something to do with our harvest settings, I would think. Again, we're at 100%, so that's harvesting off the rear. It means that all of the excess energy in the system is going back into the battery pack. It's not going to the rear axle. If we drop that to 50%, perhaps we get a little bit more of a burst out at the expense of electricity generation. Let's see. Lost a second on that lap. Yep, rears are definitely going off. And having to manage the hybrid system. Half a second down in sector 1. Have the tires fallen off the cliff? I don't know. We're going to find out. just losing time going straight. DRS. Come on, can we salvage anything here? I kind of want this car to go faster than the F2004. Probably shouldn't say that in experimental conditions, but honestly, I don't want to be the guy who proves that Formula 1 has gotten slower and the hybrid systems are to blame. .2 seconds off session best, and rear locking is going on. We need more front bias. Lost 1/3 of a second in one corner. .1, 1.15, going up on 1.2. .4. It's astonishing. Can't get the power down. I've got a lot of it, but it doesn't do you much good if you can't connect it to the ground. Got DRS, manual MGU deploy, and I'm still losing time down the straight. How is that possible? All that time is just being lost on corner exit. I just can't get the power down, and I've got tons of downforce. Six to go. Switch the MGU to battery. Regenerate a little bit of power down the straights. Again, even just from a driving perspective, these are things you don't have to think about in the F2004 because there is no hybrid system, there is no DRS, there's none of this. Even though in many respects, the newer cars are easier to drive because they don't move around as much, you've got more to do, you've got more to think about in the cockpit of these. Better part of 2 seconds down. It's just drifting all the way through the corner now, through turn 2. Tires are gone. Sector 1, almost a second off. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Again, I don't want to say that all of this is strictly down to the differences in the tires. Some of you are probably writing in the comments right now, well, no wonder your tires went off so fast, because you use the Ultra Softs. They're not supposed to last a long time, you dummy. Well, yeah, but I also use the softest available ones on the F2004. They're not the same, I know that. But, all things being equal here, am I really going to sit here and try to compute what the actual delta is between the tires. No, I'm not, as I make a pretty big mistake there, but it hardly matters because I'm losing eons per lap anyway. .133. We can do better than that, I know, but not much. Let's see, can we actually keep it in line with itself here? We can, but we lose a third of a second in one corner. And another half a second in the next. Again, 3/4 down in Sector 1. It's basically just trying to drive to a delta. There's no chance of attacking that session best of a 135.63. Absolutely no chance. Look at that. 2 bites at the cherry there to get the rear end arrested. High-speed corners, it can't even stay on the road at this point. It's understeering like crazy, and it's got like 4 tons of downforce at that point. Tires are gone, 100%. Right. 133.926. 3.3 seconds off. It's amazing. As you can probably tell, at this point I just can't wait for this to be over. This is very unpleasant. Stay flat, yes. Again, if you anticipate that it's going to break free, you can catch it. If not, you're in for a very nasty surprise. Really, I am very surprised at just how much this car has fallen off the cliff. I thought that it would be much more consistent the whole way, but it's not. The opening stint, you could be real fast, and then as soon as things start to develop and things settle down, you fall into a race pace that is well behind what you could theoretically do in qualifying, even at the same fuel load, as you can see. Now, I know that you're all saying, well, that's why they do pit stops, and indeed, well, that is why they do pit stops. However, for this test, that's not part of it. That's not what we're testing. Of course, the car would be miles quicker now than it was on lap 2 if we put new tires on it, but that's not the point of this. I want to see if, under equal conditions, a 2004 car is faster than a 2017 car. Now, I have no idea what my elapsed time actually is. Actually, yes, I do. It's down there at the bottom of the screen in the bottom right, bottom left, rather. And if my memory serves me correctly, we are fast approaching what it was in the F2002. So does this mean that the SF70H is going to be roughly a lap behind? It's quite possible. In the interest of full disclosure, I did this already, at least a proof of concept. Didn't do it for 15 laps. I didn't do it over a whole tire stint. Did it for 5 laps. And the difference between the F2004 and the SF70H was 0.4 of a second over 5 laps. However, here, it's going to be markedly larger. And all of that is tire. That's oversteer coming into a high-speed corner. I don't like that at all. See, if this were a Grand Prix doing 70 laps around here, I would have pitted 5 laps ago. At least. If we had to start on the Ultra Softs, I'd probably have started on the mediums, if not the hards, because then maybe we could have gone to lap 20, 25, but not like this. Not even remotely close. Well, let's see what the damage actually was. 134.443 was the last lap for the record, and of interest to us is that elapsed time right there, 23 minutes 9 seconds, .470. Compare that to what we did in the F2004, same starting fuel load, same distance, softest available tires, same track conditions, same everything. Elapsed time, 22 minutes, 29 seconds, .092. That's your answer. A 2004 car is faster over the average race stint than a 2017 car. Now, would there be any appreciable difference comparing this to 2018 or 2019? I don't think so. Remember, even though the hybrid systems have become a little bit more efficient, they're a little bit more powerful, the cars generate a bit more downforce nowadays than in 2017, the tires are still the limiting factor, and if you're going to use the softest available compound on both cars, well, this is what you end up with. Those Ultra Softs, they just fall apart after about 10 laps or so, and honestly, the last 5 laps was really hanging on. I wasn't even caring about consistency anymore. I just didn't want to spin. So that's what you get. 23 minutes, 9 seconds, .470 versus 22 minutes, 29 seconds, .092 in the Ferrari F2004. That's the difference. It's pretty staggering, and honestly, I thought it would be a lot closer than that, but it wasn't. Again, when you add in the factor of a longer distance, well, the numbers start to bend very much in favor of Ferrari F2004 and the regulations package of 2004 and that V10 era. The cars were faster on race pace in 2004. This basically confirms it, measuring it with the tools that I have. There is no denying it. The numbers don't lie. 2004 was faster. V10 forever. Anyway, I leave you with a side-by-side comparison from Onboard of both of these runs in their entirety. I'll have telemetry up on the screen showing you lap time, as well as the throttle and brake trace and the gear indicator with the speedometer, so you'll be able to see side-by-side what was going on over the course of both of these runs. I will synchronize the videos so that things happen in the same time frame in real time with relation to each other, so you can see just where the F2004 was able to be more consistent than the SF70H. Enjoy the side-by-side comparison, everyone. Until next time, I thank you all very, very much for watching, and very much big thanks to 8802 Gator for suggesting this little experiment. It is definitely very cool and quite surprising. Again, I thought this gap would have been a lot closer. Until next time, enjoy the side-by-side comparison. Ferrari Man 601 saying thank you very much for watching, and of course, we will see you soon.